Plants vs Zombies is all about planting plants and fighting zombies. And with 49 plants in your arsenal, the zombies are not gonna stand a chance, right? Today I'm going to be ranking every single plant in Plants vs Zombies. This list is based on how useful a plant is in levels and its value, not so much on its strength, although it will affect the outcome slightly. If a plant needs to be upgraded from a different plant like the twin sunflower or the Cob Cannon, then only the upgrade counts, so not the base plants. The only plant I won't include in this list is the imitator, considering, well, it's the imitator. Without further ado, let's get started. 48. Gold Magnet. It's a Magnet-shroom but in gold and basically completely useless. The only thing this guy does is pick up nearby coins every once in a while. This sounds quite useful, but you can literally just click the coins yourself, defeating the entire purpose of this plant even existing. And let's be real, by the time you unlock this plant, it's not even going to be useful at all anymore. 47. Marigold. It's a flower that produces coins. The only reason I'm ranking this plant higher than the gold magnet is because the gold magnet is only useful together with the marigold, while the marigold can be useful without the gold magnet. For the rest, this plant just has no reason to exist. 46. Garlic. Why this plant keeps coming back in other games is beyond me. Garlic allows you to move zombies to other lanes, and it sounds like that ability is very useful. Too bad that that's just not true. There's very few strategies where garlic is an essential plant, let alone even a useful plant at all. Most of the time you just don't benefit from garlic's ability, because in most scenarios all 5 lanes are pretty much exactly the same. There's some fun strategies like with a bunch of Fume-shrooms, but even those strategies are barely ever useful. 45. Coffee Bean. Wake up your night plants and let them run an extra shift. Coffee Bean seems like a pretty good plant. After all, you can use night plants during the day now, and there are some pretty good night plants in the game. But most of the night plants in the game have decent or better alternatives, making a coffee bean almost completely unnecessary in most levels. Even plants like Doom-shroom have good alternatives, and his sun cost is also pretty high. 75 sun just to wake up one plant is quite expensive. 44. Gravebuster. The degree of usefulness of Gravebuster between this game and the second game is enormous. In PvZ 2, it was one of the most crucial plants in Dark Ages and even Ancient Egypt, considering projectiles couldn't pass through gravestones in that game. However, in this game that is not the case. Projectiles can pass through gravestones, which makes Gravebuster basically useless. Graves are now only a problem at the end of a level when zombies spawn from them, and even then they're not really a hassle. 43. Umbrella Leaf. Protect your plants from those pesky bungee zombies. That's not all that Umbrella Leaf does though. He also protects plants near himself from projectiles lobbed by Catapult zombies. This ability basically completely removes any challenge that the bungee and Catapult zombies have, and it makes Umbrella Leaf a really useful plant to bring along when you do come across those zombies. But otherwise this plant is completely useless. 42. Cactus. You might be wondering why Cactus is ranked so low on the list, so let me explain. Because he's essential for defeating balloon zombies, right? Well, if it wasn't for Blover, then yes. But since you unlock Blover literally one level after you unlock Cactus, he is only useful in one level since Blover not only costs less, but is also much more efficient to use since it's an instant use plant and you don't need to place an entire column of him like with Cactus. 41. Sea-shroom. It's a puff shroom but then for in water. For some reason, this plant has a very long recharge time, which to me makes no sense because it's literally an aquatic version of Puff-shroom with no other upgrades or anything. This downgrade really makes Sea-shroom pretty much completely useless. I mean, I guess it's good for the first few minutes of a level when you don't have a lot of sun, but even then he's not very useful since zombies don't spawn in water lanes often anyways. 40. Split Pea. I wasn't the biggest fan of Split Pea in PvZ 2, and even in this game he's not the most useful plant. The main purpose of Split Pea is to kill digger zombies whenever they attack your defenses from behind. But that's pretty much the only thing they're useful for. And even then, they're extremely outclassed by plants like Starfruit. One Split Pea doesn't even shoot fast enough to kill a digger zombie before it eats a plant, which is just pathetic. 39. Plantern. What a creative name. Plantern lights up a nearby area and completely gets rid of any fog in that area. This can be extremely useful in the fog levels and can even save your life in some scenarios, especially when zombies like Pogo or Dolphin Rider exist. Apart from that though, Plantern isn't useful for anything else, but just this ability he has makes him extremely useful in the fog levels, and again, he can literally save your life sometimes. 38. Hypno-shroom. The name says it all. It's a mushroom that hypnotizes any zombie that eats it, making the zombie turn around and eat all the other zombies instead. This sounds like it would be really useful, but unfortunately he is rarely ever useful in any scenario. Zombonis and Gargantuars are completely immune to Hypno-shroom, and most zombies that aren't are not really a big threat anyway. 37. Tangle Kelp. Drag down zombies underwater for just 25 sun. Tangle Kelp is not only cheap, but also incredibly efficient. He can basically drag down any zombie in the water with no repercussions. This sounds like Tangle Kelp deserves to be much higher on the list, but since he's only useful in the water and most zombies are pretty easy to kill anyway, it's a lot less useful. 36. The lily pad. The concept of lily pad is very simple. Place it in the water and now you can place any other plant on top of the lily pad, opening up many more spots for you to place your defenses. This ability makes lily pad a very handy plant to have in pool and fog levels, especially in later levels where zombies appear in the water more frequently. And let's not forget about lily pad into Cattail, which doesn't affect the placement, but still. 35. Flower pot. This plant is very similar to lily pad in the fact that it lets you place plants on different grounds, but this time on the roof. However, there are quite some differences. The first one is that flower pot is absolutely essential to have, since otherwise you can't even place anything on the roof. Lily pad, however, isn't as important since you can still use grass lanes to plant stuff on. Therefore, I decided to rank flower pot higher than lily pad. 34. Kernel-pult. The zombies indeed have butter on their head. Kernel-pult lobs tiny kernels at the zombies, but he also has a small chance of throwing large chunks of butter that can stun zombies for a short amount of time. But don't let this ability deceive you into thinking that Kernel-pult is quite useful, because the small kernels he throws barely do any damage, and the small chance of him throwing butter doesn't make up for the pathetic amount of damage he otherwise does. The ability does come in handy sometimes, but nearly not enough as it should. 33. Chomper. Eat zombies in one big bite. Chomper can eat almost any zombie and swallow them whole with no hesitation at all. This makes it seem like Chomper is a really powerful plant, but there are some things that just make Chomper a lot more useless. The interval between chomps is quite long. It takes over 40 seconds before he finally eats another zombie, and most zombies in the game don't have many hit points, so Chomper isn't really vital in a lot of levels. And let's not forget about how frustrating it is when Chomper keeps targeting the least threatening zombies instead of the more dangerous ones. 32. Peashooter. The OG plant we all know and love. Peashooter is simple. It just shoots one projectile down its lane in short intervals. He is really useful for the first few levels, but after you unlock the Threepeater, there really isn't any reason to use this plant anymore. He is good for the first few levels, but pretty much useless after that. 31. Spikeweed. Teach the zombies a real lesson and they'll never walk onto your lawn anymore. Spikeweed deals damage over time to any zombie stepping over him. He can also destroy zombonis and catapult zombies in an instant. What I like about Spikeweed is just how quickly he can be used. If you have 100 sun or more and see a tractor coming up, just plant Spikeweed in that lane and that tractor is gone. Otherwise, this plant is just meh. 30. Magnet-shroom. It's a gold magnet, but actually useful. Instead of picking up coins, which you can easily do yourself, Magnet-shroom removes any metal objects from zombies with ease, including buckets, ladders, and even digger zombies' pickaxes, or pogos from pogo zombies. Just like Plantern, this plant can be life-saving in certain levels, especially fog levels. It renders all these otherwise dangerous zombies completely useless and safe from their defenses, which makes this plant quite useful in those levels, but also quite useless in any other level. 29. Scaredy-shroom. It's a Peashooter but in mushroom form, and with one slight difference. When zombies get close to Scaredy-shroom, he will hide into the ground and won't shoot anything at the zombies. This This might sound completely useless, but his low sun cost more than makes up for it. It's very easy to spam these on the field and do tons of damage. This makes him quite useful in night levels, but unfortunately also pretty much useless in day levels. 28. Spikerock. It's Spikeweed, but better. Spikerock deals twice as much damage as Spikeweed, and can be smashed up to 9 times instead of just 1. This makes Spikerock a much more viable plant against Zambonis or Gargantuars, since he doesn't get destroyed immediately. He is more than twice as expensive, which makes him less good for quickly destroying tractors and stuff like that, but overall it's a much better version of Spikeweed. 27. Blover. You might be confused as to why Blover is so high on the list, but there are some reasons. First of all, Blover can get rid of fog for a relatively long time. I'd consider even long enough for it to completely replace Plantern. Secondly, Blover can also blow away balloon zombies in an instant, which removes any value from Cactus, since Blover not only costs less, but can also be placed wherever and whenever you want, making him much more useful. 26. Cabbage-pult. Peashooters don't work on roof levels, but fortunately Cabbage-pult exists. While Kernel-pult does an unacceptable amount of damage, Cabbage-pult does a reasonable amount of damage. It doesn't stop zombies, but that rarely comes in useful anyways. He's not the most useful plant in other levels, but good enough to put him around the middle spot on the list. 25. Threepeater. It's a Peashooter that shoots in 3 adjacent lanes. By itself, it's a pretty strong plant that can overwhelm the zombies when spammed, especially together with Torchwood. The reason why Threepeater is quite low on the list though is because it's hard to find a use for him outside of pool levels, and even in pool levels he's outclassed by many plants. It can be useful sometimes, but Repeater just outshines Threepeater in every possible way, even together with Torchwood. 24. Torchwood. Speak of the devil. Torchwood warms up any piece passing through it, allowing for a much higher damage potential. Torchwood is especially fun to use together with Gatling Pea, since that combo can kill zombies extremely quickly and efficiently. There's not much else to say other than that it's a pretty solid plant. 23. Snow Pea. Any tower defense game becomes much easier when you can slow down enemies, and that's definitely the case for this game as well. Snow Pea is very simple. He acts quite similarly to a regular Peashooter, but its projectiles slow down almost any zombie they hit. Snow Pea is a very useful plant in short levels, but unfortunately outclassed in most ways by Wintermelon in any other level. At least he looks pretty cool. Pun completely intended. 22. Ice-shroom. Just like Snow Pea, Ice-shroom can be used to slow down zombies, but not only that, he also freezes zombies entirely for a short duration, even dealing a tiny amount of damage in the process. He can also be used to saw upcoming waves to allow for more sun production. Unfortunately, Ice-shroom isn't the most useful plant when you have stuff like Snow Pea or Wintermelon or even Torchwood on the field, since it basically nullifies any value you're gonna get from it. 21. Sun-shroom. It's a sunflower, but then for the night levels. Sun-shroom simply generates sun over time, but instead of generating 25 sun consistently, he generates different sizes of sun in 2 different stages. First 15 sun and then 25 sun. The only reason why Sun-shroom is so high on the list is because, well, he's pretty much essential to have in night and fog levels, but he can also be used to block zombies, since he is very cheap. In other levels though, he's really not worth it at all. 20. Puff-shroom. A Peashooter with a small range. This description might make it sound like Puff-shroom is useless, but I did not mention everything. The most important factor is obviously that Puff-shroom is completely free, which makes him a very good plant for many purposes, like spamming them on the field to deal a lot of damage or just blocking zombies for a short amount of time. You can even beat entire levels just using Puff-shrooms. The only issues are that he's not very useful against zombies with high health, and he's pretty much useless in daytime levels. 19. Fume-shroom. Those annoying screen door zombies must learn a lesson, and Fume-shroom does the perfect job. Fume-shroom sprays fumes down its lane up to 4 tiles, dealing damage to any zombie within that range. Not only is Fume-shroom useful for dealing with screen door zombies, but also with an entire horde of zombies. His low cost also makes him relatively easy to just spam on the field mindlessly and kill many zombies at once. 18. Walnut. Who knew that nuts could be so delicious? Wow, that sounds so wrong. Anyway, walnuts simply protect your offenses from zombies. It's a a very simple but quite useful plant. There are also many combos with walnut, like with Chomper or Spikeweed. Unfortunately, he is outclassed by tallnut and even pumpkin, so in their later levels, he's not going to be really useful. 17. Tallnut, walnut's big brother. Tallnut has double the hit points of walnut, but takes up the same amount of space. For some weird reason, I used to think walnut was better than tallnut because of an entire calculation that I did in one of my ranking videos. I don't know what I was thinking, but objectively, tallnut is better because he has many advantages over the regular walnut. Other than that, he's identical. 16. Cob Cannon. Two Kernel-pults might look innocent at first, but Cob Cannon is like, nope. With Cob Cannon, you can launch giant missiles at zombies that deal huge amounts of damage to every zombie in a 3v3 area. Cob Cannon mostly shines in survival mode, where it can be used to take out groups of zombies extremely efficiently. He can even kill gargantuars in just 2 shots, which is ridiculous. It's only a shame that the levels in adventure mode aren't long or difficult enough for the Cob Cannon to be that efficient. 15. Cattail. Cattail shoots homing pistols at the nearest zombie, dealing quite a lot of damage in the meantime. By far one of the most fun things to do in this game is mindlessly spamming a dozen of cattails in the water, since it's pretty much an easy win. In fact, you don't even need to bring any other plants with you besides maybe some potato mines. Cattail is just that good. However, since she can only be placed in the water, her uses do come to a limit. Honestly, these last two could be interchanged. 14. Gloom-shroom. One of the most fun plants to use. Gloom-shroom is quite similar to Fume-shroom, as it releases fumes that can hit any zombie in its area. But instead of spraying fumes in front of him, he does it in a 3x3 area around him. This plan is of course included in one of the most fun strategies in the game, called the Gloom Walk, in which you use Gloom-shroom and garlic together, which is also one of the very few strategies garlic is useful in, and also one of the most reliable strategies for survival endless. Therefore, Gloom-shroom is a pretty damn good plant. 13. Pumpkin. Shoot your plants so they can take some more bites. And really, some more is an understatement, because pumpkin has quite a lot of health. Unlike walnut and tallnut, which both need their own tile to be placed on, pumpkin can be placed on top of any other plant, protecting it from zombies and making them bite the pumpkin instead. Pumpkin is very useful in many levels of the game. He's not essential in many levels, but he does make your life much easier. 12. Gatling Pea. It's 4 Peashooters in 1. Gatling Pea fires 4 peas at zombies, killing them ridiculously quickly, especially when you pair Gatling Pea with Torchwood. This thing can absolutely shred through zombies with no hassle at all. This makes him sound like a gem, but he is quite expensive, and since most levels aren't that long, you would benefit a bit more if you bring along Threepeater instead, also because Threepeater recharges much faster. However, in longer levels, it's not really a bad idea to bring along Gatling Pea, especially in survival mode. 11. Threepeater. Here's another very iconic plant. Threepeater shoots peas down its lane, like Peashooter, but now it shoots 2 peas instead of just 1. Such a small difference may not sound like a lot at all, but it truly makes a huge difference in this game, especially in terms of viability. In most non-roof levels, Threepeater works really well as your main office plant. He's easy to set up since he's at a reasonably low sun cost, and he does more than enough to justify the cost. 10. Sunflower. Yet another iconic plant, if not the most iconic plant in the entire franchise. Sunflower is more an essential plant rather than a useful plant. Of course, she is incredibly useful in basically any level, but without her, the game becomes a lot harder, if not impossible. Because of this, you might argue that she should be at the top of the list, but since she doesn't do anything else and can't beat levels by herself, she's going in 10th place. 9. Twin Sunflower. It's a double sunflower. There's not much to add here since Twin Sunflower does exactly the same as the regular one, only twice as much. They aren't as essential as the normal sunflower, but they are more useful considering they generate more sun, allowing you to plant more plants sooner. 8. Melon-pult. Lob giant melons at zombies and deal massive amounts of damage. Cabbage-pult and Kernel-pult are nothing compared to this fella. Melon-pult is of course mostly useful in roof levels, but even in non-roof levels levels, Melon-pult can be very handy, considering just the sheer amount of damage he does. There's not much else to say other than the fact that Melon-pult rocks. 7. Starfruit. Arguably the most fun plant to use in the entire game. Starfruit shoots tiny stars in 5 directions around him, dealing damage to zombies. On his own, Starfruit isn't very powerful, but when you spam them on the field, well, get ready for projectile hell. Killing zombies becomes painless when you have many Starfruits, and the fact that Starfruit is also really cheap and easy to spam on the field because of it, he is really useful. 6. Jalapeno. Destroy an entire lane of zombies in an instant with this spicy boy. Jalapeno can also melt any ice in a lane left behind by zombonis, allowing you to plant more stuff on the field and also prevent more bobsled zombies from spawning. But since Jalapeno only hits one entire row, it's not really efficient at clearing a large group of zombies, since they are mostly spread out across multiple rows. 5. Winter Melon. It's the Melon-pult, but now its projectiles slow down zombies as well. It does recharge quite slowly, but the waiting is way more than worth it. Survival endless gets a lot easier with winter melons on the field. Even against gargantuars, winter melon just does it really well. That's pretty much all I have to say, so let's move on. 4. Doom-shroom. The name is extremely appropriate. This shroom does Doom. Doom-shroom basically does one thing: wipe an entire field of zombies. With this description, you might be surprised as to why Doom-shroom isn't number 1, and that's because of multiple downsides. The first being that Doom-shroom leaves behind a crater when it detonates, which blocks any planting on that tile. And even though I said it wipes an entire screen, that isn't exactly true. You have to plant it in the middle row to reach all other lanes. Plus, he only works well in night levels, otherwise you have to wait a slot on a coffee bean for a slowly recharging plant easily exchanged by the cherry bomb. 3. Potato Mine. Plant it down, arm it, and spadow. Potato Mine in itself is a very simple plant, but it doesn't need to be any more complicated, because it's already extremely useful, which can be said for many simple things in not just this game, but any other scenario. Potato Mine is extremely simple to use, yet so versatile and incredibly useful in any level. 2. Squash. It's essentially the same thing as a Potato Mine, but instead Squash doesn't need to arm and he can even hit multiple zombies. Squash also has a small range, which when zombies enter it, it immediately starts to attack. It's again a very simple plant, but extremely useful in basically any level. This was so close to being number 1, but another one had to top it. And number 1 is Cherry Bomb. I mean, what else can it really be? Cherry Bomb is one of the very few plants in the game you can bring into every single level, and it will never disappoint. It's precise, easy to use, relatively cheap, especially for what it does, and overall it does everything you want it to do for an instant use plant, making it the best plant in Plants vs Zombies. But anyway, that was it for this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more. Hope to see you in the next video, and as always, goodbye.